From entrepreneurship to cultural activism, a fireside chat with Dax Dasilva and Philippe Demers. Putting one's ego aside and celebrating differences is the leitmotif of Dax Dasilva, founder of Lightspeed and Never Apart. Considering culture as a strong driver of social change, one of Canada's most prolific businessmen is also one of its most activist. With Philippe Demers, he opened Chromatic Pro with an inspiring chat about passion, ambition, and social activism.
Alors, j'espère que tout le monde est totally bilingual parce que cette première conférence d'ouverture sera in English with my friend Dax. So, yeah, take this one. I'll just grab another one.
Est-ce qu'il y a tout?
It's better like this, right?
Ouais.
It's always rough to scream on a Monday morning. So I'm really happy that you're here, Dax. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, félicitations. This is an amazing conference. Happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, me too. So the funny story is about how Dax, I approached Dax last year and wanted Dax to come to Chromatic because for me, Dax is a very inspiring entrepreneur, and as you might, well, we're going to dive into that, but he founded something great called Never Apart that you probably all know already. So last year I invited him, and last minute Dax had a cold and could not show up, and then he called me and said, Phil, do you mind, I cannot come, do you mind if one of my friends goes over? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's unfortunate because I think that people, would really be interested in what you have to say. And then he said, oh, it's my friend Regine, the singer from Arcade Fire. Maybe you know her. I'm like, oh, you can totally be cold. It's okay. So this is all good. So Regine came last year, if you were with us, and it was a wonderful talk. So thank you for being sick last year, Dax. It was an amazing moment I had with Regine. And Bradley did an amazing job too, which is right there, to interview her. But no, honestly, I'm really happy. So he promised me he would be here this year and see.
Yeah, it was a bit more than a cold, but it was. I'm really glad it worked out, and I owe Regine a big favor.
Yeah, exactly. So do I guess, for you. So let me just introduce you to the public who might not know you a little bit. So I know Dax from Lightspeed, but Dax is, first of all, a very energetic guy that has a lot of passions for culture, for business, for environment. He also has an interesting family, which I had the honor of meeting her mom at the opening of Lightspeed HQ, and we had a great talk about the schools she was opening in Jamaica, and I kind of heard your father was a DJ as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to find every type of creative, and creatives. There's everything from magazine publishers in India to writers to visual artists to graphic designers. My father was a welder. He was a journalist. He was a DJ. So there's a lot.
Is that why you're having so many different jobs right now?
Maybe, yeah. It's a kind of a family of passionate, artistic, creative people, and I find my family inspiring, and they're also very deeply spiritual people. So it comes from always a place of meaning. I think everything that they do, and so I think it influences also the way I conduct my projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So more than being this awesome, energetic with a nice family guy, you're also the founder of Lightspeed, which is a POS system that helps basically businesses do their transaction. And right now, Lightspeed is more than 500 people working there, 50,000 clients.
Yeah.
I've been reading there's more than $15 billion transact that have been going through your systems.
Yeah, so it's a cloud-based point-of-sale system. We have a platform for independent retailers, independent restaurateurs, and of course everybody is going not just brick and mortar but digital at the same time. So we have all of the digital tools for those independent brick and mortar businesses that are competing now with Amazon and with Big Box, and so we're giving them the tools to compete with these in this market where consumer behavior is completely different than it was 10 or 15 years ago. And it's the same, independent business owner. They just need to be able to do so much more to reach their customers on all these digital channels. And so we're arming them with the tools to help them be able to thrive, because keeping these entrepreneurs competitive means that our cities continue to be vibrant with small business. I think the day that Amazon provides everything for everybody is the day where we have empty city streets, without independent entrepreneurialism, and this, I think, is a great mission for Lightspeed, because it's about empowering individuals who have a dream to create something special in their neighborhood.
Absolutely, and because founding a company like this is not enough, you also decided, why not starting...
It's not busy enough.
Why not starting Never Apart?
Yeah.
So Never Apart is a non-for-profit organization. It's based here in Montreal. It says that the goal is to bring social change and spiritual awareness through cultural programming.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're on the same page when we believe in the power of culture. Culture is something that has the power to really touch people, in a way that people don't trust so much. Politics, religion, economic systems. Culture is something, whether it's art, whether it's film, whether it's dance, whether it's all the different modes of culture, literature. You can still move people. You can still raise awareness through art and culture. And so Never Apart is founded on the idea that that artists, the voices of artists and the perspectives of artists can raise people's awareness, can bring consciousness into our society. And not all art spaces are oriented towards art with social impact or that have social messaging, but we felt that it was, I felt that we, Never Apart's a former Lightspeed office, and when we moved into the Gare Vigier, this building being in the heart of Milex, where there's such a vibrant artistic community, I thought, okay, let's create a space for there to be this kind of messaging from these kinds of artists, and let's let artists teach us about their way of looking at the world and their different worlds.
Amazing. So when did you founded that?
So we're going to be celebrating 3 years in June.
Okay, congratulations.
Yeah, so this is for me, I've learned more from Never Apart than I could ever imagined. I wrote a manifesto at the beginning of the project, and now I'm just completing the book of all of the learnings that have come about through this project and through all of the things that I've seen people teach one another through culture and through art and through film. It's just it's incredible.
When can we expect that book?
This fall. I think we're going to be launching it with an art exhibition, of course, right? Because there's going to be a lot of art from the book and art from Never Apart, and there's so many learnings. It's just it's one of these projects where it's an unfolding. It's very similar to Lightspeed. What it takes, I think, I know there's many entrepreneurs and there's many artists and creatives in this room. It takes persistence. But it also takes patience, Things don't unfold overnight and
magically.
No, and I think you have to follow and listen to the project as it unfolds and learn from it as it becomes what it's meant to be, And you have to have that startup mentality, whether it's a project about art or a project about technology or a project about anything.
So what kind of learning can we find in this book? You're saying you have to go with the flow with the projects and learn from it. What would be one key, for example, one key learning you made with this Never Apart venture? So,
one of the sections. The sections are leadership, the power of individuals. Individuals can make such a huge impact, and one person, one of my heroes, I just saw her recently in Toronto, is Jane Goodall. One person can educate the world about the value of conservation. So leadership, I think you can be a leader in so many different ways. You can influence people in your day-to-day life, all the way to being a Jane Goodall. So leadership, I think that is something that is very common to both Lightspeed and Never Apart. At Lightspeed, we help entrepreneurs be leaders, through their businesses in their neighborhoods. At Never Apart, we help artists be leaders through giving them a voice. So, this is one of the learnings. The other sections are on the environment, on spirituality, and of course about culture.
So speaking of your hero Jane, and speaking about environment, I was curious to know, because if you, like, let's say I didn't know you personally, and then what I would expect from a big founder of a big tech company is to be passionate about computers and technology and the internet. So where does that passion for culture and environment comes from? Is that something that you always had, or you developed with age?
So it's an interesting story, because obviously my family. I just said a little bit about the creative side of my family.
Yeah.
So this has always been a part of me. I was drawing I had crates of drawings as a child. Always been that kind of person. But when I got my first computer at 13, my dad was a graphic designer. Used to bring home a Mac, and I learned about the intersection of art and technology through this Mac. And I became interested in user interfaces and the beautiful way that Apple humanized technology, and that's where I became this incredible nerd. It's built user interfaces, but then became a programmer, not because I was an engineer, but because I wanted to bring these user interfaces to life.
Yeah.
And so this set me on this path where I became, a developer in my teens and in my 20s in British Columbia. But also, I also like doing technical support because I like people, And so when I went into the University of British Columbia, I was like, oh, well, I'm going into computer science, obviously. But it only took me 1 year of computer science to realize that I was not going to be an engineer. That's not the way I'm built, So I was not going to be doing 4 years of math and statistics and calculus and I went back. I took a year off and I went back for art history and religious studies. And I fed the part of me, nourished the part of me that I think is the part of me that you see at Never Apart, and also is the part of me that taught me how to taught me about people and sociology and has helped me as the demands of Lightspeed have grown in terms of me as a leader. So I think it is that liberal arts education does show through in all of my projects today.
So you went at school in computer and then said, hey, that's not for me. Took a break, went back to study art history and religious believing. And when you were taking those studies back in Victoria, did you already knew you wanted to create a business and is that something that was already in you?
So I think that starting programming and working for software companies, building software projects since a very young age, I always knew I was going to have my own software company. And so when I moved to Montreal and I started Lightspeed, I'd done a couple projects for other people, but I was like, okay, now it's time to do it for myself. And I was laid off from a job, and I was like, it's now or never, right? And this was my obsession at the time. I lived, I lived, slept, and breathed building a software that we'd win an Apple Design Award. That's all I cared about. I wanted to build software that would, of course, help our customers, but I also wanted to bring a lot of craftsmanship to it. Now people change, right? What occupies your mind when you're starting a business, and what occupies my mind today. It's people evolve, and people care. Your world evolves, and you care about more and more things as you move through life. So, when you ask me, shouldn't you care more about tech and computers? It's I do, you know, but I think you expand definitely your scope of and you bring in things from yourself, from your earlier days, and explore them, you know.
For sure, yeah. Back to the roots a little bit. So you just mentioned you moved to Montreal after your studies in the BC. I kind of, with the years knowing you a little bit, I've observed you have a very special relation with that city. You're kind of like me. You're a Montreal lover, right? So why would you say you have this special relation with this city, and what is it?
So there's a creativity and an open-mindedness these things breed innovation, and great innovation breeds great tech, breeds great culture. You know, all of these things are. It's no surprise that you're seeing a renaissance in the city today, on the technology side, on the the VFX side, in all these different ways in this new economy, how we're beginning to really shine. It's not a surprise. Not a surprise to me, because we have all the right dynamics, and this is what attracted me to the city. Also, it's multicultural, it's multilingual, it's a great place to build an international business. We're so comfortable with all the cultures of the world, all the languages of the world. So, you know, this is what's so special about it. I don't know that I could have built Lightspeed anywhere else. I don't think I could. I don't think Never Apart could be based anywhere else. You know, so for me, it's been absolute liberty of thought, and it's an inspiring place to create.
Yeah, Montreal is a great place, and we're happy that you're being part of it. Thanks for moving out of BC. So now I'm just going to get a little closer to our subject, which is really about art and activism. But first, I want to know why for you, Dax, it's important to be surrounded by art and by culture. You kind of mentioned it a little bit already. You talked about how it connected us, it empowered people, and how the culture has the power of transforming individuals. Is that why you were... Because I remember my first visit to Lightspeed offices back when they were at where Never Apart is now.
On my Lex, yeah.
And already I was like, wow, okay, these guys are in an ex-cinema studio. There's a bunch of artworks. It felt like some of the employees definitely had creative practices. So why would you say it's important for an entrepreneur in the tech industry or in any industry really to be surrounded by art and culture?
I think you want to, you want to have a environment that sings with creativity. You know, if you want people to be able to, to go beyond, the conventional. Yeah, you want to surround yourself with things that are challenging, that open the mind, that feed creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot disagree with that.
Yeah.
And so you, after founding Lightspeed,
also another point, art and different forms of cultural expression give you different perspectives, you know. And I think when you have different perspectives, you have different diversity, you have different manifestations of creativity. Then you have different perspectives allow you to create better solutions. You know, if you only have one perspective on something, you only have one influence on something, then you only you don't come up with very rich solutions. So when you're challenged in multiple ways by different forms and different diverse sources of creativity, this is when things really become vibrant and dynamic and come alive.
Yeah, it's true that artists have this way of challenging the status quo and asking questions about things you take for granted, and they'll shake things up, and that's, I think, very good. And when you're building a business, to have access to this intelligence of
absolutely.
Maybe not looking where everyone is looking, and then lifting that rock and seeing if there's actually something interesting underneath that.
100%. And I think that when you have the creative process and an artist is in the creative process, often that person doesn't know what the end result will be, right? It is in many ways a spiritual process, you know, the act of creation, you know, and so it's a discovery that is so unique, and the artist is changed by the act of creation, but so is everybody else that gets to experience it, you know, and it may mean different things to so many people. So so multiple things are created simultaneously, not only for the artist but for the viewer, and that is why I think it is important to fill our spaces, public spaces, business spaces, you know, your residences with art, and it is enriching.
It is. And speaking about learning from the artist and from the creative process, um, so building a business is always like a challenging and very energetic process. I'm wondering what big lesson you, because you, after starting Lightspeed, you decided, hey, like funding one business is maybe not enough, let's have another project. So would you say that you had, like, what were the big learnings you took from Lightspeed and applied to Never Apart, or vice versa? Because you also mentioned that you've learned so many stuff from Never Apart. So
Yeah.
how does having a big tech company and then a non-for-profit on one side, how can you learn from one to apply to the other, or is there such connections?
Yeah, so I think you get into the I think the thing that one of the key learnings from Lightspeed, well, there's a few, well, definitely more than a few, but one of them is reinvention. You know, you have to I know I have to reinvent my role at Lightspeed every year. I know that the company has to be reinvented and has to be reconceived, and you know, to remain relevant to our customers, to remain relevant to the way that consumer behavior is changing for our customers. You know, and being able to be agile and being ready to adapt and be ready to throw away everything you believe. You know, I think this is. And also, I think you cannot do that without really listening, you know, and becoming a listener for you know, from all the different stakeholders, whether it's the people that work for you or with you, whether it's your customers, whether it's the outside world, and so, you know, all of this should feed into into that reinvention. And I think that's the same with Never Apart. You know, like I'm often asked, "What's your end goal with Never Apart?" You know, well, I didn't have a master plan for Lightspeed either. You know, these things unfold, and you listen and you reinvent, and it's a lot of it's built on faith. You know, faith that if you do listen and you build and you put all your energy and you attract great people that have the same spirit, that you can. That as you reinvent and as you build, that these things will reach their full potential, you know, full potential for impact. And that's I think what you really want, right? You want the projects that you do to have meaning in the world. So that's, I think, what you're building towards.
I'm so happy and relieved that you're saying that you didn't really had a master plan for Never Apart, neither Lightspeed. I feel so much grateful right now for Massive Art and Chromatic Festival. I'm like, oh yes, okay, I'm not alone. No, okay. Well, I love that you're learning or the listening and the reinventing, because I feel that especially as an entrepreneur myself, and as someone that is really drawn by moving with cultural project and getting projects done, I love this fact that you're mentioning, that having to reinvent yourself every year is really important. And I think that's a good key learning for all the people out there that well, not only in the non-for-profit but also in the business, because so many of the recent businesses, even the bigger one, are keeping to do the like things like they always did, and they're gonna, you know, the world is changing so fast now that it's totally something that they should adapt and change.
Well, I think the businesses that we're trying to create, we are trying to disrupt, right? Whether it's in technology, whether it's whether you're doing something culturally. There may not be a master plan, but there's you cannot be stagnant. The reinventions are to take things to another level. You may not know exactly where those levels will take you in 5 years, because if you're a good listener, you're going to build something that really disrupts and in its path. And so the thing is, you don't want to be disrupted yourself, right? You've got to stay aggressive, you've got to stay active, you've got to push, right? And so I think that's that's I think what creativity lets you do is lets you continuously change the game and disrupt or be disrupted if you're stagnant, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned, well, there's no necessarily not a master plan, and that you're adapting. So if there's no master plan, there's a lot of impact, though, for sure. So could you observe already in 3 years of Never Apart the impact that this organization has on the local community or the global community? And what kind of impact would you say the non-for-profit had so far?
So I think the core goal of Never Apart is unseparation, right? Just the words mean to unseparate people, and to be able to have exhibitions where there's a diversity of people that are exhibiting, and you might come for one artist, but you're now exposed to people from other cultural backgrounds, other perspectives, other gender identities, other experiences, and so. I think a measure of success for me is the engagement that we see from people at our events and the diversity of people at our events, all ages, all races, all gender identities. And I feel like people feel ownership. And I think that that's another key learning of Lightspeed and Never Apart is every person that's involved. Has to be given a degree of ownership. It can't just be my plan. It can't just be my master plan. It's got to be everybody involved's got to be implicated into building something, building something impactful, building something great. And so, I think that our goals for Never Apart are to take what we're doing and to broaden it to more of the city, to broaden it internationally. We've done activations in LA, in Toronto, in soon in New York. The book will help us also bring a codified message beyond just the center. So we just started a TV show. We just finished the first season, 6 episodes, and we've been asked for a second season. So
is it airing already?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, we just finished the first season. It's on Out TV.
Okay.
And all of its online partners. So yeah, we're pretty excited. So these are the kinds of things that we do an online magazine, and we do a lot of video content. And this is the kind of thing that sort of can happen as the project unfolds, and you listen for opportunities, and you build, right. So pretty excited about that, and kind of pushing that message into new kinds of realms,
Absolutely. So you were talking about the goal of Never Apart being to unseparate people, which is a very noble cause, because sometimes it does feel a little lonely in our modern days. What other causes like this would you say are important to you?
So I think it's another part of the mission of Never Apart is unseparate from each other, and I think culture can help with that, because culture helps people see, understand, and have empathy for other people's experiences. Mm-hmm. The other things that are important to me that are also echoed by Never Apart are our separation from nature. I think the more that we've become industrialized and the more we've become isolated behind our computers, the more we are we're not connected to where our food comes from, what's happening around the world. I mean, it's that, I think, is a big separation that we have to get our heads around, or we're going to only be a virus on this planet. And then I think we're also very separated inside. We're separated body from soul. We feed our body and the physical, and we don't work on the soul and the spiritual. And that's why I think culture and creativity are good nourishment for that part of us. It feeds the soul.
So, what tricks would you have for people that wants to feed their souls, but that doesn't necessarily know how to start and that are not familiar with spirituality? And is there like simple things that we could do to like get started?
Get started in a project, or get started in
this reconnection and this
So
separation.
Yeah, on separation. Well, I'm very partial to culture. I think culture is a great awareness raiser. It's a great consciousness raiser. When you experience the art of somebody that's not like you, or comes from a different place or a different experience from you, you don't have to necessarily meet the person to be engaged and to be elevated by that. And that's why I think, at Neverpart we like to do also, we want to exhibit, but we also want to do panel discussions. We want to explore, the creation process. I think, finding out the creative process and finding out how the person came to express these things that way, also I think is something that, because we're so disconnected, because of, technology, engaging in real life, or even engaging with artists online, but reaching out, I think, is a way to enrich ourselves through other experiences. And the reality is, we cannot build something new. We cannot build something fresh. We cannot have real tolerance. We cannot have real engagement with other people until we know them. Until we have a better understanding of one another, we'll not be able to create something new, through diversity. We'll never be able to create unity through diversity if we don't have empathy.
Amazing. How are we doing on time? Okay. So one thing that really amazes me about your projects, and that I have a lot of respect for, is that so sometimes it feels that it's really easy for us in society to say, oh, it's important to care about the environment, and it's easy to, get, tell everyone how it's important to get involved. But it's also another thing to actually get active and get, start to do stuff. And so what's your magic trick? Because you already had Lightspeed. You I guess had already a super busy schedule. So how do you make time to actually become an activist for those kind of causes? Or how does it necessarily have to be by starting a new project? Or what's your secret recipe, Dax? We all want to know. How could you become activist?
So it's a big section of the book. The book is called Age of Union, but there's a big section of it called Acts of Union. And you can infuse intention into every act you do. If you can turn a meal, if you eat a plant-based meal, and you have intention, and put intention into that meal so that it does not have a negative impact on animals or the environment, you raise that physical act to you elevate it. Every single thing you do, every daily act, whether you choose disposable plastic or you choose reusable, every daily act can be an act of elevation. So you don't need to do of course it's helpful to do grand projects, but your individual choices on a daily basis can be something that brings a reward to you and has a positive impact. And I think those are the things that, if we all did them, could add up and could be meaningful. But it also gives you meaning and purpose in your daily life to be able to infuse everyday acts with intention and thus meaning and purpose.
It's intention is something I will remember from this talk. It's a great trick indeed, because then you can do it on a daily basis and at any moment, really.
Yeah, because we do so many things without so thoughtlessly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When you start to think about the greater good, and you start to think beyond, what's convenient for you in that moment, when you start to shift that perspective and you put the intention into everything that you do, and how you speak and how you understand and treat one another, it definitely is. It's the reward is yours, in the end.
See, guys, the world is yours with Dax this morning. So 2 last questions for you, because
Sure.
I think I could definitely talk forever with you, but I think we do have other interesting people to hear today.
Sure.
But I want to know if there's other interesting project that you're excited about these days in Canada or worldwide that you're like, oh, this is something I have to follow, or that caught your attention.
So I think we've done work in the last 2 years. I think Indigenous artists are really doing something amazing. We did a Two-Spirit, which is it doesn't map exactly to LGBTQ, but it's its own spiritual sort of conception of LGBTQ in Indigenous communities. Those artists, whether it's Kent Monkman or even locals like Dana Danger, or Jeff McNeil, and all people from different different communities all across Canada, they're producing some of the most innovative and thought-provoking and challenging art. So that, I think, is extremely inspiring, and we'll be doing something with some of those artists again this summer. I think that MAP, which is MAP Montreal.
Fest, yeah.
Montreal is a world leader in mapping because of Moment Factory and all of the different artists on that level.
Yeah.
We host Map Festival every fall at Never Apart. So I think this is a very, very exciting cultural kind of exploration to follow. It's basically magic. It's technology and art, and you look at a mapping piece, and it's just It's
also very about it's also right there again, the power of transforming object with light, right?
Absolutely.
So it comes down to the roots of how culture
incredible.
can transform and embodies people.
Yeah, and then internationally, I think I really think Afropunk is something that
Yes.
there's so much the environment right now. The racially charged environment of the United States is, it's a tinderbox right now. Afropunk is using art, fashion, all of these things to protest and to make statements. And I think it's a way to really to make that conversation that much more powerful and that much more rich through culture again, right? So.
I totally agree.
Those are my
with that.
picks.
All right, well, we'll make sure to follow these. And as my last question, Dax, today for you would be, I wonder if you'd have recommendation for entrepreneurs or people in the room that would like to follow your path maybe and get involved in a cause and get involved in their community. Any tips on how we can make it happen, or any recommendation for people? We all have busy lives, right? So how can we? What would your recommendation on how we can all get a little more activist in our community?
So I think a lot of it is supporting one another. If there's people are making an effort to do things, whether it's a show, whether it's a gathering about a cause, or show up, be one of those people that's there, that adds their voice to the the chorus. Engage. It's and be one of those people that helps online too. Promote, spread the message. I think there's so many different ways to be involved, and you know, when we go beyond our own projects, our own needs, you know, it's great when you're able to do that, you know, for your own stuff, but you know, uplift others, you know, and I think it will be done for you as well.
With intention.
Yeah, with intention.
Thank you. That was Dax Dasilva.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merci Dax. Merci.
Dax Dasilva. Merci beaucoup. Merci, parlez-moi. Et voilà. Est-ce qu'on a plusieurs questions dans la salle? Est-ce qu'il y en a certains d'entre vous qui voulaient poser des questions? Peut-être qu'on peut y aller rapidement.
Sorry, we skipped the questions, guys. Yeah. Of course. We'll take a minute for questions or two.
Sure.
Do you have a question?
I have a question.
Hopefully.
Hello. Hi. My name is Sam Coppola. I'm an entertainment lawyer in Montreal. My question is, all the creativity, I understand the advantage that it gives to an organization. It makes us think outside the box. Are there disadvantages to too much creativity? And there's a second part of the question, is how do you control all that to make it reach an objective?
It's a good question. So I think that, you know, there's different stages of creation, right? You want to start broad. You want to start, you know, throwing away all preconceptions. But I think that you know, you've got to have a process where you kind of curate to something that that can be manifested. You know, and I think that that's when I think it's either by consensus, or there's, you know, or there's somebody that's the curator, you know, and somebody has to make a call, you know, and I think that's if you have an organization, you want to cultivate that in your leaders, you know, to be able to make that process a process of refinement. And give them the ownership and the trust in their judgment to be able to do that. And if it goes wrong,
it's a fine balance there.
Yeah, it's a fine balance. It is. And if it goes wrong, you have to step in. You know, but otherwise, I think when you unleash people to lead, then that's when you can scale your organization, right? And that's when you can scale your organization with creativity.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions? Come on, we got back on the stage, guys.
Hi, I was wondering, with the creation of Never Apart, how did it affect your HR at Lightspeed? How did it affect your employees and your retention? And are they feeling more, like, has it had an impact on Lightspeed?
Like, oh my God, I need to go to work for Never
Like,
Apart
oh
now?
my God, oh my God, I love working for Lightspeed because they are also behind Never Apart, and it fits my values.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good question because I keep it separate, right? It's, you know, doing social good at Lightspeed has been something that we really. It's been a conversation that we finally found a conclusion to this year, because what's important to me personally, I can't. You know, I can't impose that on 600 other people. You know, everybody has their own causes. Like, and there are many people at Lightspeed that come to the Never Apart events. You know, but it's a small fraction of the 600 people where it, you know, it connects with all of them. Now, I think for sure I think you're right in saying that a lot of people like working for Lightspeed because there's a core value of diversity. You know, and inclusion, which is exemplified by Never Apart, because that's who you know, who I am and who we've attracted into the company. But what we've come to the conclusion at Lightspeed of how Lightspeed gives back, because I don't ask Lightspeed for funds for Never Apart. It's all private, you know. But we've decided that we're going to give our employees volunteer days, and so in groups they can choose. We've hired brilliant people. They can choose what their causes are going to be. We're going to support them with days off that they can go, whether it's helping any range of cause. So I think that's more fair. People can not be forced to support things that we think corporately we should be supporting, or I think should be supported, but that everybody can have that decision, make that decision on their own.
Thank you.
Thanks.